Hey buddy, and welcome to Rauta's Black Metal Reviews. Before we get into this very debut album by this Norwegian band, a couple of words I think are worth mentioning. Now we all know that Norwegians are so goddamn proud in whatever they do, and one of their nation's pride is of course their black metal, which more or less started in early 90s. Not only they paved the way with a lot of good bands, with a lot of good music and all that stuff, so there's a reason to be proud of. But so many Norwegian bands seem to tap into the past glory. Like, hey, we're Norwegians, we kind of invented black metal. You did not, but that's beside the point. And so many of them are like kind of underlining, emphasizing like, hey, we are Norwegians. We came up with the second wave of black metal. And we really need to tell you about this story being like, hey, Norwegian sound, Norwegian lyrics, Norwegian history and all that stuff. And how is this relevant to this video? Because we're talking about a Norwegian band that does exactly that. This one is Ulvehyrde with the debut album that was released in 2021. Here it is, Mørkets trilogi del van Englemakersken. I don't know how to pronounce it properly, but you get the idea. Anyway, this one goes with the name of Englemakersken. And as you can see, all the song names are in Norwegian. So this is very much a Norwegian band that seems to tap into the 90s. Not only does sound like a tribute or homage to 1990s Norwegian sound and style, the lyrics are in Norwegian, and of course, what else really? But it's also about Norwegian history. So these are the ones, the kind of artists that are so goddamn proud of being Norwegian that the only thing missing here really is their Norwegian flag. And mind you, some people, some bands that have done that as well. But let's not use this as a reason to attack the band, but let's more like talk about the album in question. This is the debut album, and technically speaking, it's kind of a side project. Now, a lot of these guys wearing robes have been played in any other bands, and some of them do indeed share a common background with various bands. So fundamental norsk svart metal, which is fundamentally Norwegian black metal, is indeed kind of a side project. Like, hey, okay, let's do something traditional for a while. Let's go back to the 90s with our style, because it's supposed to be something different than your main band. And to be honest, they do it quite well, but only quite well. And the point here is, even though this is very, very enjoyable as being very, very Norwegian, you know, having the coat of arms and all, this is not there to, you know, challenge the classics. This is not your next Burzum, Satyricon, Enslaved, Immortal, Dogthrone, Emperor, Urgehal, etc. You know the name, the list of names, and of course, you know, bands like Dimmu Borgir and the stuff. But this is not exactly close to any of these names. Not Mayhem, and not even any of those, you know, somewhat bigger bands that came from Norway. But somehow this manages to sound so very Norwegian. And of course, that is not a bad thing. I mean, if you're a lot much like me, you grew up with the 1990s Norwegian black metal. So this is so far the only release that is an album by the band. There's a couple of singles and all that stuff, but when it comes to albums or MCDs or whatever, well, this is the thing here. This one runs for some 42 minutes, and throughout the whole deal here, it's pretty much, well, very 1990s ways. I keep saying that because I want to emphasize the fact that there is nothing, absolutely nothing original with this album. Except for maybe one thing, and that is where a lot of Norse core bands, especially bands like Immortal, Mayhem, and stuff like that, went for rather fast tempo. This one is more about mid-tempo, and that makes this a little bit more interesting. I mean, if you really think about it, the bands back in the 1990s Norway, they were like really, really different. Dogthrone went for very raw black metal soon after they quit their death metal style. Bands like Ildjarn went to super raw and primitive, very, very simplified black metal. And then there were bands that went, you know, so much more complex levels with symphonic elements. You know, talking about Emperor and Dimmu Borgir especially. And there were their bands like Immortal that kind of like went super grim and wintry with their rather fast tempo and real grim black metal. So Ulvehyrde is kind of like going to the very core, like taking some parts of various bands and trying to sound like very Norwegian. They don't have the classic Burzum riffing, they definitely don't have the speed of Immortal, and they don't have the symphonic elements. But somehow this manages to sound very, very, very Norwegian. So what there is to it, if you really think about it, given it's more like mid-tempo parts, just with more fast-tempo parts, well, I guess the closest thing that I could say goes roughly to the same territory, yet still sounding different, is, the early Satyricon kind of a black metal. I'm not saying this sounds Satyricon exactly, but the general idea here is that is where this could be, landing. Like, there is so much the sound, the whole production, which is sounding like, yeah, this is somewhere in Norway around 1995 or so. Not exactly the modern, later Matrix era. I'm talking about those latex suits and whatever, when the band started suddenly wearing, those trendy sunglasses and not like big sunglasses by Fenris kind of a thing, but, like modern look with, when Matrix entered, the cinemas, people suddenly started having those trench coats and small sunglasses and looking very modern, cyberpunk, if you will. This is years before that. And this is not as gothic or weird like band like Arcturus or, Covenant. So definitely going into mid-90s era of black metal. But like I said, this is missing those classic riffs which makes albums such as The Mysteries to Satanas so goddamn lovable and memorable. Or whether we're talking about Burzum or Dark Throne and the like. But still, this goes somewhere there. Not exactly as catchy as Gorgoroth. Not exactly as unique as early Satyricon ones, but roughly in the same ballpark. And that which makes this album somewhat likable. I mean, the production, the vocals, the songwriting, the variety, all there. Just missing those golden riffs and superb songwriting. So definitely easy to listen, maybe even easy to like, and so much that you put it into your own collection. But when you really start comparing to the classics, you figure out why they are classics, and this probably not so much gonna be the future one. Anyway, even this kind of a critic, I want to say, this is a very, very potential band to be growing to the level of the classic bands. So I hope these guys keep honing and doing what, because I mean, this kind of a, now I guess I could be saying, old school style of black metal, I mean, it never went away. Never went out of fashion, if you will, never became an old gimmickry, but still is worth listening to, still very likable. So, a decent release, and that's why I am giving this 7 out of 10. Could be a better one, but something magical is still missing. So, likable, but not a classic level greatness. There you have it. Go check out the links provided in the description box, listen for yourself, and decide whether or not this is worth buying. Thanks for checking out the review. Should you have a comment or questions, drop in the comments box below. See you soon. Bye-bye.